Hi guys, welcome back to the Fight Podcast with
Sharir.
And with me, Jan. Hi Sharir.
Hi Jan, how you doing?
I'm very good. Nice to have you back, man.
Nice to be back.
So, for you guys, we just had tests yesterday. Both of us are pretty much still very tired. It was a hard weekend.
I'm not tired.
You're never tired?
I'm never tired.
I hurt my back doing the whole shenanigans, and so I have to sit down for this one. So,
how's your back today, by the way?
Not great. Let's put it this way.
It was smashed pretty bad yesterday.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
You know, last time when Raoul Fireman carried me and then threw me across the room. Did you see that, by the way?
I've seen that. These people are listening. They don't even know who he is. He's a big boy.
Big boy. Yeah.
Imagine big, and then he's a little bigger.
Yeah, and it's also he's very, when you put it to the test, he can be very, like, he's just a strong guy. He's not just big, he's strong as well. So he just threw me. And he ragdolled me pretty bad.
That's how you learn.
That's how you learn.
I
imagine it looked great though.
It was pretty nice to watch.
If you had a video of it, it probably looked great. But I think this is the issue when people film. They never get the good stuff. You just have to film everything to get the good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why, especially. But I think with ICCS, like with the tests, do you usually film those?
Me, no, because I'm like testing.
Yeah, not you personally, but I think does
people
someone film?
Yeah, I think people film. I think a lot of people like ask someone to film their test with their phone, and I know that Dom films sometimes some of the tests. Yeah.
Mine were all filmed, but I'm not sure if that's like a regular thing or if just Dom did it with mine.
I don't know. Yeah, but people usually like to film to go back and watch.
We need an ICCS videographer.
Once in a while, I'll put out a video of like parts of the test. You know, we cut it, put some fancy music,
like the gladiator style music.
It looks good. Yeah.
Also, the first couple of videos I saw of you, there was some promotional stuff for ICCS, and you had some rock music in the beginning, and then it also it continued into the video, but you were filmed from some distance away. So, and you weren't mic'd up, but it was just the mic from the camera. The rock music was so loud that I couldn't understand anything you were saying. Pretty much.
I'm not sure what video you're referring to.
I'm not sure either, but it was some video I watched some time ago when I Googled something, or I looked up something from ICCS for something I did with the online stuff. And there was this video, and I was like, let's watch the video. I didn't get anything of what you were saying. Like, I saw the moves you were doing, but it's like, yeah, okay. He explained something, I didn't get anything.
Was it good moves?
It was great moves. You only have good moves. So they have bad moves with you.
You never saw me dancing, but the answer is no. No bad moves.
Just hot moves. Just pure heat.
Exactly.
Talking about videos. I think we talked about this a lot, but people who watch the YouTube stuff, let's call it the YouTube stuff, I think you know which kind of videos I'm referring to. I think there's something I noticed with people that come to train with ICCS or with just like self-protection or martial arts in general. Something about those videos is pretty keen on presenting themselves as being very cool. So it's not about the aspect of, like, there's a difference between someone being cool and the stuff they're presenting being cool. Like you're a cool guy.
Thank you.
But the stuff you do is very interesting, but it's not about being cool. It's about being technical. It's about being
it's also cool.
Precise. It's also cool, but you get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
It's not about being like, yeah, I'm so badass because I box or something. It's about the thing like, I'm a good instructor. I know my stuff, and then it's about presenting it in a way that it's accessible. And I think with a lot of people, I've seen this issue where they're so lost in presenting themselves as being very cool that they kind of lose touch with how to present it in a way that people understand it. Also, there's a lot of time I think there's issues with when you don't know the stuff you're presenting, but you're using it to present yourself as being more cool than you are. Sometimes if you don't get the thing, I noticed that with boxing, like the way that you teach, I took a lot of that for boxing instruction, because you break it down for imbeciles, basically. Not that you think your customers are stupid, but it's about telling it the way as if they were.
I like to call it breaking it down to baby babble.
The baby babble program.
That's what I like to call it. No, because you break it down to a simple and as many stages, many ways as possible. That's how people understand. Because sometimes you assume that people understand when they don't understand. It's because you do it for so many years and you do it on a daily basis. So, to you it's easy, but to someone else it's actually quite complicated at first. It's like you start something new. I assume if I would start some new kind of
like rock climbing, for instance, or something.
I would be good at rock climbing.
Okay,
I'm a little heavy. I'm a little heavy, but I can climb a rock. No, but that was a bad example.
Pole dancing.
Okay, I would probably be good at that too. You know what?
Okay,
mathematics.
So you're kind of defeating the point here.
No, mathematics for you.
Mathematics.
Okay. So if it's your first time doing it, I'm sure you're not going to be the best at it. So it has to be taught that way, like in a simple way. Like, don't look at it through your eyes as an instructor and as a professional, but look at it through the eyes of someone who's first time ever doing it. Like a baby.
And you can't assume that the people know the kind of stuff that you already have been trained in.
Especially if he's in a beginner's class for a reason. So you that's why I call it breaking it down to baby babble, because it's like you don't explain it exactly with the tone you explain to a baby, of course. But because then
you do the bungee.
They'll never come back again. But you explain it in the most simple way as possible. Yeah.
But why do you think... We talked about this in the past, but where do you think this idea of I know how to fight that makes me a cool person? Why do you think that is such a common theme? Why is fighting something
because
that is...
it's alpha, that's why, of course. Everybody wants... Tell me one person who doesn't want to be strong. Everybody wants to be strong. Right?
Strong can also be just lifting weights without the whole...
Yeah, that's an example. Everybody wants to be strong, right? Nobody's going to say, I don't want to be strong. Of course you do. So you think, I am pretty sure everybody wants to know how to fight. They might, say, we don't like violence, but it's not about the violence. It's about the fact that you're alpha. You want to know how to fight, or you're not just men, I think. Everybody would like to know how to fight, right?
But still, it kind of is about the violence. That's the whole point.
It's about, not necessarily, it's about confidence. If you have the confidence, let's say you walk into a wedding. You're kind of in there, you're with your tux on, and you stand in the entrance, and you look at everybody, and you think to yourself, I could totally tap everyone up here. So
is that how you go to weddings?
Yes.
I could fuck all of these people up.
It's a good feeling to know that, right?
It doesn't hurt.
Exactly. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah, but still, I've talked to some people who are not fighters, and a common theme that appeared was, especially here, like in Northern Europe, you don't need the fighting. You don't. It's like there's police, there's all of these things. Like you shouldn't be a violent person. Like this is something that we've passed, and it's why should you train it? It's something that is unnecessary, and all of these things. And you led at this point where people are hesitant to even consider the possibility of just being capable of violence, because they're like, violence is bad. And the thing with this is, I'm torn on this, because there's violence to gain an advantage, for instance, like robbing someone, or just being, in general, being a bully. Like there's ways you can use violence for bad, for sure. But then there's also, we talked about this in one of the past podcasts as well, there's moments where violence is needed.
There's no society that can exist without strong men. Doesn't work in nature. It doesn't work anywhere. So that's the good violence, I guess.
So you mean violence then would be outsourced, like for instance the military or the police or whatever, but something that keeps the structure going has to be a violent force.
A society cannot exist without strong men defending it. It has to be that way. Maybe not everyone sees it because they're not appreciative enough of it, but human race was always very violent. Ever since the beginning of time, there was violence, right? If you open up a history book, I mean, that's what it's all about. Pretty much history is all about violence. Okay, open up the Bible, right? I mean, ever since was it Cain murdered Abel? That was the first recorded murder in history, I think. Ever since then, people were murdering, beheading, raping, butchering each other. So it's like a little bit of naive, even I would say. Oh, we don't need violence. Isn't that right, mommy?
It's because they grew up very secure. That's the whole point. They were part of this community that was protected, so there's never the necessity.
But they grew up very secure because of other people who
That's what I mean.
Protecting them.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So you think this is not like a new fascination? This is something that is just deeply rooted in the way we live? Or the violence, or thinking that violence, like having this connotation with violence, being like, okay, this is something that is cool because it has this function.
People always looked up to warriors throughout history, throughout every time, right? That's what people, until today. Oh, you're a soldier. Wow, even if they're not. Most people, there are some like pacifists, whatever. Let's not get into that. That's a weird species, maybe. Okay, but the norm.
That's a weird species. The pacifists.
Yeah, we could talk about that another time. But you know what I mean. It's not. It's a little bit hypocrisy, I would say, even.
You think you can't have one without the other?
Of course you can't. Of course, and they know it too. Everybody knows it, but from there to admitting it is something else.
But isn't that kind of like the whole gun debate with? Like, if there's one in the whole area, then it's a problem. Now everybody has to kind of... Now it's an issue.
Ridiculous.
But if there would be, in theory, if there would be no violence...
No, because that's not even in theory. It's not even in theory. That's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
Without violence, you wouldn't need violence to protect against violence,
Yes, okay. But to think... no, even to think that like you could change to human nature or human violence because, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Right, peace to strength usually is the only thing that works.
You're now saying human nature.
Yes, look, I mean, if it's throughout history so much violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing to stop evil over and over and over and over again was good people capable of violence. That was the only thing that stopped evil. Right, show me. I don't know. Maybe you could show me one time that there was another case where like the bad people just said, you know what? Let's stop being bad. Show me one case, and I'll say maybe I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if anybody listening know one case, let me know. But I don't know of any case like that. It was always eventually there was bad people making a lot of bad stuff. Then a good person or people came by and said, you know what? Enough with that. And then we're violent towards the bad people. And then it was quiet for a couple of years. And then there was violence again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But all over the world, I'm pretty sure it's the same story. Because there's people out there who are evil.
I think there's
who enjoy violence,
I think there's a big difference between, you said that one in one of the past podcasts as well, that your obligation, let's call obligation, if you have a family, for instance, is to have some capability of violence because it's about reacting. It's like a first aid thing. It's like you have to react, and I think that whole thing, like in a home intruder or something, that's a whole different thing than two groups fighting, because with one you're protecting your family. It's like the core family. You're protecting it against some threat.
Right.
The other thing is two opposing interests or ideologies that conflict and have a fight.
Okay.
So I think the thing is with the two groups having a conflict, usually it's never about the people themselves. Usually it's leaders telling them you have to do this, you have to do that.
Okay, maybe, but the bottom line is there's a group out there that wants to kill you or wants to kill your group.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're in the wrong group. So
in their eyes, yeah.
In their eyes, yeah, in their eyes, of course. So there is no. If there's a group, for example, who doesn't believe even that your group has a right to exist, let alone in peace, but no, they don't even believe that your group has a right to exist on the planet. How do you think you're going to solve the problem without violence? There is no way.
Because you're not about to talk to them.
There's nothing to talk about, right? Hey, let's sit down and talk. Let's talk like nice people. What do you want for me and for you to like be friends again? I'll tell you what I want. I want you guys not to exist. Okay.
Okay, let's do that.
That's a pretty bad deal you're getting there, isn't it? Isn't it, right? So of course there's going to be violence.
And also that's not like an informed opinion. That's just a conviction you have.
There's good and there's bad. It's like that. And usually, you will hope that you're on the good side, But there's sadly, because the world you describe is like some kind of beautiful,
like the utopian,
exactly. But show me one case that actually happened.
I think that's just for people who grew up very protected from all of these.
Protected because people were protecting the people that grew up that way.
But they have the luxury of building
but they have
up
the
this
luxury
idea.
of maybe kind of wasting other people's time with that stuff, even in a way, because just read the books yourself, learn a little history, understand that you should be very thankful for people who let you actually go to school every day, go to university, and even go to university and even bombard and even say bad things at the actual people who are protecting you. And the reason why you could do all that is because you live in a country that protects you with people who are capable of violence. That's the only reason you could do that. Because there are places in the world, but if a person tries to speak his mind, like people do in other countries, right here, like in Europe or U.S., freely, they will die. And not only they would die, their whole family will die. So the fact that you could, I'm saying you, I'm not mean you, yeah, of course, I mean like
people,
the people, right? The fact that people could do that is because they're protected, right? Now you cannot protect someone with a flower, could you? Right? A lot of these, you have all these politicians. I'm not into politics at all, right? But against guns, with guns, whatever. That's on a whole other topic. They have bodyguards with guns to protect them, don't they?
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Ever thought of that?
Yeah.
If you don't believe in guns, how can your bodyguard hire one? Right? So obviously, it's because that's how you protect things. You protect things with people who are capable of violence. So violence could be good. Violence could be bad, depending on in whose hands. Right? Who should say violence is a bad thing? If violence, of course, it should be the last resort. But if it was used to protect a child from rape, was violence a bad thing or a good thing? If you smashed a person's head in with a rock because he was trying to rape a child, was the violence a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, right? I get your point.
Of course. So it's in the hands of the person who uses it. Every person has free choice in this world. You're capable of good and you're capable of bad. Choose which way you want to go. That's where a person, I think, was created with what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for?
Morals,
and yeah, exactly. Some people, don't have them anymore because after a couple of times of violence, maybe that goes somewhere else. Or compassion, right? There's a reason why you have compassion. I think the human body was created that way so you could choose the right path. But to think that to say violence, let's shut it all off. We don't need it. Let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's so naive because while you do that, people are going to be stabbing you in your back in a second because sadly, it was never like that. Since the beginning of time, it was never like that.
I find I thought about this topic a lot, about the question whether or not you just said there's violence that can be used for good and violence that can be used for bad. So the conclusion would be that violence kind of is a neutral thing. Like it's a tool, and you could use it for that, and
just
you could use it for
like
that.
a weapon, right? A weapon, a pistol, a rifle. Is it good or is it bad? It doesn't have a mind of its own. How could that be good or bad?
It's about its usage. You could use it for sport shooting.
Hammer. If I take a hammer, I could use it to build something beautiful, with knocking the nails. I could use it to knock in your head in. So is the hammer good or bad? It's a tool, right? A gun is a tool. You put it in the right hands, it could be used to enforce actual peace, right? Because peace, people who will protect you, will allow you to go to school, to allow you to do your stuff, to go to watch Netflix, all that stuff. Put in the wrong hands, and then it will not allow you to leave your house ever.
To enforce peace, I think that's interesting because what do you think would happen? Not with a country that is in an active conflict, but just a different country. Let's take France for instance. If France tomorrow stopped having a capability of violence, what do you think would happen to France?
Do you see what's going on in France now? Do you watch the news?
I sometimes do.
Okay, that example. I mean, there's a lot of violence in France now. Imagine tomorrow there's no more police. The police in France, I mean, they're already so tied up with what they could do, what they can't do, right? But okay, take the police out of Paris tomorrow. See what happens. We'll have a podcast right here tomorrow again. See what happens.
I'll call them up.
Not just to the policemen. See what happens to the store owners, to the homeowners, to the car owners over there. Right? It's crazy what's going on. Not just there, in other places too. So, that was actually a good example. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. So your point is, it's not about just being like different nation states, whatever. It's about also
there's a lot
destructive
of
powers within.
There's a lot of great people in this world, but there's also a lot of people who are not so great. It is what it is, and today they're mixed. Maybe once everybody was living in their own little nation, but it's not like that anymore, right? Today they're mixed through different reasons. There's different. Everyone's mixed together.
But still, there's autonomous nations, so that's a weird concept.
There is, but there's people within. For example, that's a good example. France is a good example because there's people within France who can't stand France, and they say it out loud all the time, right? There's people within the U.S. who can't stand the U.S. They say it too. So,
or at least they can't stand the agreements that
they can't. It doesn't matter how you paint it. They can't stand the United States of America, and they say it out loud all the time. So how did that happen? Whatever. I'm not an
expert on this.
Not an expert on that, but it did happen. It did happen. So you have enemy within as well, right? You have foreign enemy and you have domestic enemy. I believe in every country you have that.
So you're trying to look at it as what's the status quo right now? And if you look at it just like the way it is...
It's not only like, okay, that nation against that nation, right? But now they're mixed. They're mixed, So the problems are within as well.
So it's about cultures or like the feeling of belonging to a tribe or something.
It's about cultures and what people don't like to admit. It's about religions. But it is what it is.
Do you think keeping the structure of a state is always better than having chaos? Like even if the state isn't necessarily...
For who? For me, chaos is great. Okay, I'm waiting for that day. But okay, chaos for me will be great. Personally, I'm looking at it as just me in the world. I've got my weapons, I've got my training, bring it on.
Yeah.
Right? But no, it's a horrible thing because it's people who need to be protected. There's people who need to be protected because there's women, there's kids, there's families, there's older people. Everybody deserves protection. By the way, I think, again, I'm not like a genius in politics of the states, but that's what governments exist for. In my eyes, a government exists to protect its people. Does that make sense?
Why think else?
So? That's what I think. Why else would you need a government? If the government doesn't protect its own people, so what? You're here just to collect taxes? What do we need you for?
Do you think, or do you agree that there can be a difference between protecting and managing?
Managing and protecting, I mean, it could come together. I understand why you need rules and laws, your taxes could be good. You need to pay the lights outside. People, you have to have roads, of course. We're kind of sliding here into somewhere else, though. I don't know if we want to slide there.
No, it's not.
Yeah, so managing, of course, but bottom line, let's say, only to be managed and not to be protected when I need you the most.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just saying as far as violence, but as far as anything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a citizen of this in this country. I need your help now.
Mm-hmm.
I sincerely need your help. Maybe with violence or maybe with something else. If they're not there for you, then what are they there for?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's in my eyes. Again, you could think what you want. Anybody can think what they want. That's how I see governments.
Mm-hmm.
If the government, push comes to shove, is not there for the citizens, then what good are you for?
Yeah, that was the whole point that I was trying to make. That because you said violence and keeping like this order that keeps people protected is like a thing where violence can be a tool for good, as you put it. But I was just thinking about if you have a nation that is not enforcing the interests of its people, then enforcing that nation state is not necessarily a good thing in my eyes. So order is not necessarily a good use of violence.
That's why you know, tyrants fell so many times in history because of that exact thing. Because eventually people were like, enough's enough, and they took pitchforks and you know, they realized that they're the majority. Right, and they took over, and then sometimes another bad person took his place instead, or sometimes it turned for good. But that's what happens because people could only be pushed that much. I think eventually, when a person's hungry and he sees his kids hungry, he'll get violent, and that's why, you know, you say, "Oh, all these people." Remember the pacifist people we talked about a while ago. Let's see how unviolent they get when they're hungry.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
You know, it's so easy to say, I want peace and kumbaya when you have everything in the supermarket and when you have democracy and when the police protect you and other people bleed for you every single night and they don't even know what goes on at night. They have no idea. I have friends all over the world in military and police departments all over the world, right? That people have no idea what goes on. I was just speaking to a friend of mine in the U.S. and in Ohio. His friend was just hurt, right? He hurt his leg pursuing a bad guy. Does anyone know? Does anyone care? You know? No, people have no idea what goes on, you know, and it's maybe it's a good thing, but have some appreciation. Have a little bit of appreciation and you know, it's crazy. I don't know, this young generation today, they're nuts. Totally nuts.
They're nuts?
If you ask me, they're nuts, yeah. Maybe it's our fault, but they're nuts. Bottom line, you know. But yeah, we're going back to what was the topic?
The topic was mainly with violence being a tool and not a good or a bad thing.
Exactly.
And the reason or the question I'm getting at is, I've noticed an interesting change with this because if you look at, for instance. I've read this article I found very interesting about the Vietnam War, and in the Vietnam War there was they did a questionnaire for veterans that came back from the Vietnam War, and a surprisingly big amount of people admitted to when they were in a firefight missing on purpose.
I never read that, so I don't know anything about that.
It's just a thing that but the thing is like when you look at that, it's like I think. Because you said this or that is it's a human nature. Those people did not sign up for the military; they were drafted. There's a difference there.
All right.
And I think it's a thing
then you're asking about and I'm not getting into this at all because I have no business. It's not my business to get into this, right? If a person doesn't have all the facts, I think he should never have an opinion. But then you go, was the Vietnam War correct or not? I don't know. It's okay to be humble.
You're agnostic in that way.
Okay, but let's take an example of violence in a war like that. Bad or good? You're drafted. You could say it's not your fault. It is your fault. You're stuck in the jungle. People are shooting at you and at your friend. Is it bad to shoot them back because you want to go home? What do you think?
I think it's a very tricky situation.
Yeah, it's not that
because
tricky.
At the first point
it's not that tricky.
I think it's a little tricky because it's like they're shooting at you, but why are you there?
It's not that tricky.
Okay.
I promise you that if I put a gun in your hands and I put you in the jungle and you're with your relative or a friend who you consider a brother and someone's shooting at you, you will not be thinking, why am I here? You'll be thinking that later.
Yes.
You'll be like, man, I wish that never happened.
I know, yeah.
But you'll be shooting back because you want to go home.
Yes.
Because people want to survive. Is that bad or good? Who are you to
That's
judge?
a neutral thing, yeah.
Who are you to judge?
Mm.
If you were never there, who are you to judge anybody who was?
Mm.
Right? And that's another thing with all these people.
That's what I mean.
All these people, right?
These people.
Well, that's besides the point. What are you doing there? That's besides the point. And it's maybe it's sad and maybe it's something to be talked about later.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it say? Let's say you're in war and you're like, I don't believe in war, so I'm not shooting back.
Mm-hmm.
And then you let your friends die. Are you a good person?
Yeah, it's like
you're
a dilemma.
Horrible person.
Because everything you do now
there is no dilemma here.
You think so?
You are. I know so. There is no dilemma there.
Mm-hmm.
You let your friends die. How is there a dilemma? Right? It's a sad reality. But again, it brings us back to the same thing. Violence in good hands would sometimes be used for the good. Actually, in good hands, violence could be used to prevent violence.
Mm-hmm.
Because sadly, again, maybe in a perfect world, in some utopia, this doesn't happen. But in our little universe, it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Bad people respect only one thing. You want to guess what that is?
More violence?
Strength. That's the only thing they respect. You be nice to them, they don't respect you. They think, oh, he's nice because he's weak. Because that's how they think. And you have to always try to see things through someone else's eyes. If you see things through your eyes all the time, you're not going to understand the other side. Mm-hmm. So to good and to bad, right? If you're having an argument, here's a little tip for relationships out there, right? If you're having an argument,
Dr. Love.
if you're having an argument and then you're always like, but I don't understand. Try to see it through her eyes. Try to see it through his eyes. And I see why that makes sense to how you see it, but let me explain to you. And a lot of times, that kind of prevents the argument.
Yeah, it's mediation, yeah.
Right? That prevents the argument. So take it to another extreme. Try to see it through your enemy's eyes. And say, okay, if I see it through his eyes that way, maybe I kind of do have to be violent right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because he doesn't think I should exist at all. Or he has no compassion over anything. So there's a saying. I mean, it's a Hebrew saying. I'll try to translate it in English. A person who is compassionate to cruel people will end up being cruel to compassionate people. And that is very true. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly the example I gave you with the person who will not fire back. Okay? So, again, it could be good, it could be bad, depending on whose hands.
Mm-hmm. So you think he's cruel because he might not be there for the compassionate people that are with him?
Look at what you have in reality today. You brought it up. All those people who we know, they're against violence, and they're so compassionate towards all these violent, for example, terror groups. Compassionate towards them, compassionate towards, hey, we could talk, we could do this. And they're so cruel to their own cops, their own soldiers going home. Mm. Have no respect to them. It's human nature. That sentence is actually so accurate. You can see it happening every single day. Mm. If you stop and think for a second, and you understand that everything that you have, to be thankful for is for all those people out there who are actually letting you do it, and they're not even asking for anything in return. Just maybe, stop bitching all the time, but they don't. So yeah, I think that's very accurate.
Mm-hmm. I think something that I've noticed the cousin of a close friend of mine. He was, I think at the time he was 14 or 15, and he wanted to do like a sort of like an internship with the military. And I talked to him about his motivations, like why is this a path you're interested in? Tell me more about your your stance on it. Like, how did you come to be interested in this? And he answered that he watched a lot of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, where it's like it's an animated show. I think it's for kids, and there's these Clone Wars, and there's like these people shooting at robots, and he talked about this whole thing and about the camaraderie and how he liked what he saw there, and what kind of got me worried was he was still 14. And I think that's an interesting thing where you see the thing that I'm sometimes worried about is that people, it's like with eating meat, for instance. If you're born into a world where your parents just give you meat, you don't really think about that what went into it. You know, there's like you have chicken nuggets. You don't think about the chicken that was there before because you know chicken nuggets. You've eaten them since you were like 3, and so they're tasty. Like you know them. It's like tasty, and you don't think about what went into the chicken nuggets. You know, You've never killed the chicken. You've never seen the whole process. And I think with a lot of movies, for instance, TV shows, whatever, they portray, on one hand, they portray the thing that you just said. Like, okay, there can be violence that is used for this or that purpose, and that purpose can be beneficial to like a society, for instance, like policing or maybe if there's a threat, like counterterrorism and stuff like that. But also a thing that I've noticed is the whole where being the most violent person. If you look at a lot of modern, like very recent movies, let's take the whole John Wick franchise and stuff like that. It all hails.
I don't really watch movies, so you'll have to.
I'll elaborate.
Okay.
They all kind of hail from the whole Western genre. If you look at modern, like shoot 'em up movies, and they kind of originated in like the whole samurai genre. Like it's this one lonely guy, and he walks into a village, and there's like stuff is bad there, and then he comes there and gives order to the place. And one thing that is very important in those movies is he's always alone, and violence is always the proper way to go about it. And something that I've noticed with, especially with kids, is some of them, they take this, they never consider this thing. It's just because it's always around them in movies and stuff, and it starts very early. They sometimes don't see, like violence is too prominent of a feature, I think, for those kids sometimes.
You know, I mean, in the video games, there's a lot of very violent video games, right? From what I've seen, like you get to kill people and run them over. Yeah, that's horrible.
And you think because the stuff that I'm like, I think.
What are you proposing? Like John Wick comes and he walks into.
He talks to them nicely.
Like, hey, let's just talk about this. And what kind of? I mean, that's not going to sell much tickets.
No, it's just. I've talked to people. This is a horrible topic, but especially when we have customers who had some experience with, like there was they had either experience with domestic violence or sexual abuse, for instance, and this person, it's a one-on-one conflict. It's like one person and another person. It's not like a whole group of people that think you shouldn't exist. Or it's not like that. It's very easy. It's one person, and now they have this horrible thing happening to them, and they have a choice. They can either forgive and move on with their lives, which is probably the most hardest thing, or the hardest thing to go about with these kinds of things, or they can look at the whole part of, okay, this has to be revenged. This happened to me a couple of times where a person asked me, like, can you kick his ass for me because he did me wrong? And that's where I've seen this happen to me a lot of times, where people ask me, like, can you do this for me? And I think, I'm not sure if that's something that's just deeply rooted in people, or if I think that's something that, for instance, movies, video games, whatever, have kind of brought up, like, violence is the way to go about conflict. I'm not sure. Do you have an opinion on this?
What's your question? Is revenge a good thing?
No, I'm asking do you think that's just something that is rooted in people, or do you think that's a media thing?
I think that it's rooted in people. I think that it's very bad that there's a lot of violent games out there. I think it's very bad that kids and adults waste their life on games too. It's just a waste of life. There's other stuff you could be doing to be more productive, I would assume. But there was violence way before video games. And in fact, I mean, if you look at the societies today, most societies, maybe not most, but if you look at not most, but if you look at the globe and you look at, okay, Europe, US, many places there too, right? It's not as violent as it used to be, right?
It used to be when, just like 50 years ago?
Yes, but also take 500 years ago, right? You want to travel between countries in Europe 500 years ago. That was a very dangerous thing to do, wasn't it? Okay, you could be robbed by pirates. You could be raped. Now you could travel as you want, right? You can go where you want. So, but there is a lot of places where it's still very violent, and the places where it's still very violent, interestingly enough, most of them don't have GTA. Most of them don't have computer games and movies, and they're still violent. So, is it a good thing or bad thing that there is violent games? Maybe it's a bad thing, but is that only reason for violence? Obviously not.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
The thing that I was getting at is, do you think there's a fascination with violence that is kind of like pushed further with this?
Maybe.
Like, I have these war movies.
Maybe for some people who are a little bit crazy, yeah.
Because the
But
issue
I don't think the fascination is with violence for like your cousin who wants to be a soldier. I think the fascination is like being a man, like, you know, being appreciated, being someone who like people look up to. That's also a fascination, and I think that's probably the case. It's not like I want to be a soldier because I want to kill. You know, that's not. I've never met a soldier who said I want to be a soldier because I want to kill people. I've never met. You know, there are other. You know, that's why people join like terror organizations usually. But no, it's because
I think it's the same thing as some people say about the police. Like, there's always bad apples. There's like
there's always assholes.
But I think
but if you look at the majority, I want to protect my country. You know, I want something stable in my life. You know, it's very good. You know, some meaning. Like, okay, now I have something to do. You know, stuff like that. But it's not about I want to kill people. Usually, okay, if you say that, because, you know, you go army, you get evaluated. With the shrink, if you tell the shrink why I want to join because I want to kill,
you'll get thrown out.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for a lot of people that are like they might have good or that have good intentions joining a military, for instance. I think a lot of them have this trope of like the hero trope. Like, it's for them it's very black and white. As you said, like, there's good violence, there's bad violence. Then you showed me this video once, I think it was on Israeli television, where this guy was confronted with a woman and she came up to him and he was like, you have to stop now. Like, I will need to shoot. Like, and she had something in her hand. And I think this whole situation where there's someone where you're not sure, is it a threat, is it not? This is where you said, like, black and white becomes very gray because you don't know how to act around it.
Yeah, but look.
I think it's very hard.
If that woman, let's say, had a knife, and she's about to stab you in your heart or your friend, does it really matter why she's there at that?
No. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
But also, another example. You know, there again was a woman walking up to some soldiers with a knife, and she was walking from kind of far away, so she wasn't a big threat. And she was walking like without much motivation, you know. Usually they have like, you know, like what's called tunnel vision, and they run at you really fast and they're going crazy. She was like, had the knife up, like walking slowly, like, and they had the guns on her. They're like, hey, come on, stop. And she didn't stop. No one shot. One of them walked over to her, kind of knocked the knife out of her hand. They put her on the ground. And then they're like, okay, you know, what's the deal, you know? So an interrogation, it turns out, like, she's like, you know, well, my father molests me, my uncle molests me. I don't remember if those other people involved. I figured, you know, I'll just go, I'll stab someone, either I'll get killed or I'll spend some time in a Israeli prison. It's like a vacation for me. So, you know, you never know.
Yeah, which is a horrible thing.
Yeah.
That's just what I mean. The whole, I think in media it's painted more black and white than it usually is in practice.
I don't watch the news.
No, I mean also in movies. It's very, I think.
I don't watch movies. Next. Look, guys, let's just be productive with your life.
Yeah.
Go out, wake up, 4:30, 4:45 breakfast. Okay, be thankful that you woke up healthy. Go train. Be a beast. Go to your work. Be productive there. Go home. Have a great meal. Have a good time with your family. Life is good. What more do you need?
Yeah. I think that's a great point to end this on.
Thank you.
Do you have to add something?
Not at all.
Those were great closing words.
Thank you.
Despite the fact you said people have to get up at 4:30. I never get up at 4:30.
The best time of the day is morning.
It's 4:30 is the best time of the day.
Why would you want to miss the best time of the day?
Okay, so in conclusion, get up very early.
And train.
See you guys next time. Thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.